once again. Thank you all for joining us. This is Nuance, and I am Mike Scala, joined as always by Jay Carter, also known as Timid, the hip hop artist and the chair of BLM Tokyo. What is going on, Jay?
Same old late night. So getting a late start.
Getting ready. Yeah. Doing well. As you can see, we are back at Lehman College, and we want to thank Lehman and the City University of New York for hosting us here. I think it's a great partnership. And so, I'm sorry, I'm getting...
See that message on the screen?
There's a message on the screen?
Yeah, it says this will be recorded or something like that. Somebody's got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Looks like someone has a message on the screen. I think that's you, Eve, actually. Just click OK, and we're good. So, as I was mentioning, we are live streaming. We're all live on Facebook, and we are also, of course, recording for the podcast and the YouTube. So multi-platforms. Got a lot going on here, but we want to thank the folks at Lehman for helping us with this. Thank you, Eve Dussault, and everyone. On that note, we're joined by Sheba Abraham again from the League of Women Voters. And of course, Sheba is our connection to CUNY and Lehman. So thank you, Sheba. Make sure you take yourself off mute.
You're welcome. And thank you so much again, Eve and Mike and Kenneth, for being a part of this program. It's a very informational program that we are a part of.
Yes, definitely. And we have a very informational topic we want to get into today, which we will, about vaping and as it relates to underage users, in particular, the dangers of that. So I wanted to welcome on our special guest. It says Chris Krayven on his screen, but also known as Chris McDonough, right? A local here in Broad Channel and Rockaway.
Yes, I was born and raised Chris McDonough, and the reason for Chris Krayven on the screen is that is professional name. In my downtime, I double as a manager for a professional wrestling company, and that's how me and Mike Scala basically met, was through the page that we're both members of. And I'm a manager for professional wrestling, and June 3rd, over here in Rockaway Beach on Beach 97th Street is going to be our next event, and it's going to be a blockbuster. And my man that I've been training under my wing, Mason Carnage, is in the main event. He's teaming up with Team Splendid against Tony Biella, the Brooklyn Bulldog, Big Ben Benedetto, and Ryan Roxbury. So Team Splendid and Mason Carnage with Father Krayven against those other guys, whatever their names are.
Excellent. And where can people get tickets for this?
They could contact me through Facebook, Instagram, on Father Krayven page.
Mm-hmm.
My gimmick is I'm a evil priest, kind of like the sinister minister. In my background, my best friend many years ago asked me to marry him to his wife. So I am an ordained Christian minister. And when I started practicing to become a manager in wrestling, the guy who was training me asked me what I had in my background, and I told him the ordained Christian minister, and it kind of just took off in that direction. And we have a whole stable. We got sayings and T-shirts and stickers. So it's been a 5-year roller coaster so far. This is my 5th year in the business, and I'm really enjoying it. Wrestling is one thing I'm very passionate about. It's what I used to watch with my father when I was a little boy. And Bruno Sammartino was my hero growing up, and I always wanted to be a professional wrestler. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to become a professional wrestler, but I still got my foot in the door, and I do local managing, and now I'm helping with the young kids. So you could look on my page on Facebook or Instagram, and the information is there. I know the All American Deli, I think, has some tickets over in Broad Channel. The American Legion might be having some tickets, and everybody's favorite human being, Jimmy Smallman, has tickets. And all of that information is on my page at Father Krayven on Instagram and Facebook. And that's Father Krayven, Krayven.
Excellent. And you mentioned that when you were getting involved with managing, they asked you what your background was. That's an interesting thing, how in wrestling they'll try to tie your real life background with your character. I guess they figure that makes a stronger character if you can relate to that, whatever it is, that background, that personality, that side of you. It reminds me of Paul Bearer being a real life mortician, right?
Yes. basically reality becomes fantasy and fantasy becomes reality, and you blur the lines somewhere in between there, and that's where you get your wrestling character from.
Right, right. Yeah, and they say it's basically just you turned up to 100, right?
150 sometimes.
There you go. Jay, you have any questions? I know you sometimes are curious about the workings of wrestling.
You know, I haven't watched or really been into wrestling, and I mean that's always been your thing there.
Yeah.
I who was it I used to watch with was Hogan and Macho Man and those types of things.
Favorite from the 80s, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, going back to the 80s, early 90s.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean everyone of course knows The Rock and John Cena. But so this might be an old question, but anybody still using the figure 4 leg lock?
On occasion, they pull it out. On occasion, one of my purposes I feel in wrestling is to bring it back to the times that we grew up in, because I feel everything is so fast paced now, and they burn through storylines, they burn through holds and moves, and you don't give a guy the time to breathe. You don't you're not using wear down holds, and the wear down hold works 2 levels. The wear down hold, like a headlock for maybe 30 seconds, that gives the 2 combatants a chance to breathe, and
Right.
it gives them a chance to rest and actually make their next move. And it gives the announcer, if it's recorded live, it gives him a chance to tell the story. And that's something that's missing a lot from today's product, is the storytelling. And that's something that I missed from the 80s, was there was a lot of stories being told. And in the 90s, they went to the fast pace and burned up a lot of storylines quick that could still be running today if they did them properly, in my opinion.
Now I mean it's a very, you know, it's very coordinated, but it's very physical and takes a high degree of athleticism in order to do it. Like you said, they might need that time to rest or breathe to prolong the match, so that, you know, everyone's still working at, you know, a peak shape. So
Yeah,
I don't know if a lot of people give them credit for that.
right. The pacing also, I think, plays into that storytelling element that seems to be missing, or that we're losing today, because you want that kind of lull in the match to build to the high spot, as opposed to just having high spot after high spot after high spot, which isn't really a high spot if it's always high, right? You need that come down.
Exactly. You want to take the fans on a roller coaster ride, and you want to take them on a roller coaster of emotions, and that way when they leave, they'll remember. You know, people sometimes will forget what you say. People will forget how you look, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to bring back into the business, is getting that connection with the feelings, with the fans, and not always, you know, like they say, if you go into bed and you do your best move first, what are you doing? You know, you want to.
Yeah. Well, it also, I think, is more dangerous, because now you have a type of environment where people are trying to just one up each other with the high spot moves, and nothing is ever going to be good enough anymore. It's like, you know, okay, we've seen the 60-foot dive. Now you got to do a 90-foot dive. No, where are you going to go, right? You're going to break your neck. And it does become more dangerous. Whereas if you kind of build to it and you pace yourself the right way, you don't need to just try to outmaneuver each other with the athletics all the time. It could be more special when it happens, and more meaningful. But that goes back to storytelling and psychology.
That exactly. I was just going to say that the psychology of the business is missing today. I was taken under the wing of a local manager, and his name is Mr. Big, and he taught me the psychology of a manager. Less is more. I studied Kevin Sullivan. I studied The Undertaker, Jake the Snake Roberts. These are guys who were methodical in the way they thought about the business, and they put their best foot into what they were doing, and they really sat down and thought about their matches before, and they had to think and hear how the crowd was reacting, and if something wasn't working, you just didn't go off the script. You had to change on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that's missing too. A lot of it is pre-scripted now, and you know, we're not actors and actresses, although we are real athletes. And what's everybody's favorite question? Is wrestling fake? Right? You can't fake gravity. Wrestling is no more fake than a ballet. Wrestling is no more fake than a football game. There is no stunt doubles. They're really getting thrown around. It is, and it's been debunked for years. Vince McMahon pulled back the curtain and came out of the closet with it's sports entertainment. It's predetermined matches with predetermined outcomes, but they're real athletes having real competitions, just with predetermined outcomes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I
we
think-
want, oh, go ahead, Jay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you had something else on this. I was going to talk, segue into the next topic, but if you have something else on this point.
I was just gonna again highlight the athleticism part of it. Now, I was gonna ask this, I don't know if they're still doing it today, but I remember from watching the older matches where they would have, the match, and then you'd have the interview with them where they talk about whatever their upcoming match is or the challenge to the other person, the whole Mean Gene Okerlund type of interview.
Yeah.
But
Mean
as
Gene.
far as the story goes, and the environment goes, I think that was probably as important as what was going on in the ring because it established the characters, it set everybody apart and gave their own storylines, and that put that out front. How do you do that in the local matches where you don't really have that TV interview time? How do you get the wrestlers to establish their own characters and their own background?
It's a very good question, and before the internet age, it was pretty hard. But now that we have the internet, we use Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you go on my Father Krayven page, you will see that for any match that's upcoming, whoever I'm with, I'll have them with me and we'll cut a promo together. I do my own promo work. I cut, copy, paste, slice, dice, and put it all together right here in my house. And sometimes we spend an hour doing a 1 minute promo just to get it right. And we want to get the point across. And sometimes they're 1 minute, sometimes they're 3 minutes, depending upon what the topic is and what's going on for that. And being that I use the priest gimmick, I try to throw a little Bible verse in there or something in the background, something that you want people to hear, something that's going to click with them and that they're going to remember. Like my last promo, I talked about, throwing stones at glass houses. And everybody's heard that in their life. So now that clicks and you want to connect with the fans with that.
Right.
Right. Well, we've established that wrestling is potentially dangerous. Something else that we know is dangerous is vaping, especially when kids do it, right? And I know this is a topic that you wanted to come on here and talk about because you have a very personal experience with the issue.
Yes. I contacted Mike because I have a 17-year-old son, and we were out one night and he thanked me that we went out together with a bunch of my friends, and he said he had a wonderful night. We don't get to do this too often. We need to do this more often. And me and my son have had a tumultuous relationship, up and down. When he was 9 years old, his birth mom had passed away. So I have another wife now. I'm remarried. And she's done everything but give birth to my two children. She's wonderful to them. And me and my son have had a back and forth because his mom is no longer with us. And when you lose a parent, it's tough. He suffers from ADHD. He has depression issues. And he was very happy that we spent the night together and that we went out with a bunch of my friends. And about 2 days later, I got a phone call from a mutual friend from my job. And he said, I just want to let you know, I didn't want to ruin your night, but every time you turned your back or you went to the bathroom, your son was vaping behind your back. And now with ADHD and depression and all that stuff, there's certain attitudes and certain behaviors that come with that. So me and my wife kind of knew something was off from the way he was normally acting. We just couldn't put our finger on what it was because we never thought in a million years he would be vaping. And I said to the person, I said, are you sure that was my son? He says, I know who you are and I know who your son is. And your son was vaping behind your back. So with that, when I came home, we waited for my son to come home, and me and my wife confronted him. And he said it's been going on for a while, and that he went to a local dispensary, I guess it is, and he was able to just go in there and pick it up himself. And a friend of his got him started on it in school. This takes place in high school hallways, high school stairways. It was a big shock to me because my son's on medication for ADHD and depression. And we were very concerned that mixing any of these chemicals could harm him or even kill him. One of the things that I remember when vaping first started, it was like 2004, 2005, that I can remember anybody that I seen do it. And they were telling me that it's just water. It's just water. So for all these years, I was blowing it off as it's just water. I did not know the world of vaping and what existed out there now and how deep it's gotten and how many lives it's ruined. My personal idea in life is if you're an adult and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But you have to be an adult to make your own choices. When you're underage, 21 and under, according to the law, you're not allowed to vape under 21. And I started doing a bunch of research. I have never been a really political person because my father had political ties. And this year I'm signing up to vote for the first time.
Wow.
I want these laws changed, and that's how adamant I am against this. My father used to campaign for Anthony Seminario. My father used to campaign for Tom Santucci. These were people who were in my life daily. And when my father passed away, I just turned my nose to politics and I kind of went undercover and hid from it for a long time.
Right.
The reason I reached out to Mike is because I feel so strongly against this. I want, like I said, if you're an adult and that's an adult product and that's something you want to do, it's like watching porn. It's like, you know, cigarettes. If that's what you want to do, that's your business. But when it comes to children, I want the laws to be made stricter so that the people who are dealing this to these children or selling to the children have deeper and stiffer punishments. With that being said, after I spoke with my son and we found out where he got it from, how he got it, I took him to the 100th precinct. I filed a police report against the place. And that wasn't good enough for me. I went in full, I'm an MTA bus operator. So I went to the dispensary in my full MTA uniform because I just got to work. And I just told the gentleman, is this your establishment? And when he said, yes, how can I help you? I said, I don't know you and you don't know me and we do not have any problems. And he goes, yes, how can I help you? I said, if you sell to my 17-year-old son again, we're going to have big problems because I'm going to do everything I can to shut your business down.
Yeah. So I wanted to chime in here. You mentioned that the law is that they're not supposed to sell it to people under 21. And in fact, I'm on a New York City website right now. There is a portal here. We can put it in the chat where if an establishment does sell tobacco or an e-cigarette product of any kind to a minor, anyone under 21, in fact, you can complain here through 311 or through the city's website here, which is also 311 portal online. So that is a big no-no, but as you mentioned, apparently, despite the law, it's happening, right? Businesses are in fact selling to minors and not IDing properly.
From what I can read up on and the research that I've been doing, it's happening more often than not. And people just blow it off as vaping. Oh, it's just vaping. But from what I've researched, when you finish one of those cartridges now with the nicotine or the THC, it's like smoking 150 cigarettes in one cartridge. You know, that's very dangerous. There was a young lady who she vaped and was hiding it under her bed, and she started her own campaign because she almost died from vaping. And when she woke up, the first thing she did was ask for a pen, and in her hospital bed, she wrote, I want to start a campaign against vaping.
Wow. It says that pharmacies and businesses that contain pharmacies are no longer allowed to sell smoking and vaping products. So
Correct.
We do have laws in place, but it seems like the issue is we need to be a lot more vigilant when it comes to enforcing them.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
when vaping, I was gonna say when vaping came on, like you did mention, it was just kind of passed off as a safer alternative to cigarettes. And in some cases, I've heard the same thing. You said that, oh, it's just water vapor, just flavored water vapor type of thing. But that's really not the case. And I don't think there's been a lot of I'd say public research into it. It just kind of popped up on the scene and just was everywhere all of a sudden. It's like, oh well, at least they're not smoking cigarettes. So this
thing also, and this is the lawyer in me, I guess, trying to parse this language, but as it relates to people under 21, right? Stores cannot sell, and it has a list here of types of products: herbal cigarettes, non-tobacco, shisha, pipes, rolling paper, water pipes, hookah, vaporizer, or anything else designed to inhale tobacco. Now, might they be trying to make the argument that these products are just for vaping water and they're not designed for tobacco, but people are misusing them by putting tobacco in them?
There's warning labels when they sell them, what I've heard. I have not seen or experienced a vape myself, but from what my son has told me, there's a warning label on the package. And I just looked at him and went, there's a warning label and you still thought it was a good idea. You know,
What is that? That was a package of tobacco?
it was a package of, it was for the cartridge that the vape has.
A cartridge, and it's a tobacco cartridge.
It's either tobacco or THC. I'm not clear
Okay.
on that. It's either
Okay.
one of them. And then it's mixed with a high level of nicotine.
Right.
The high level of nicotine is very dangerous. My son right now is fighting withdrawal symptoms because me and his mother have him on lockdown. We're dropping him off at school. We're picking him up from school. We're taking him to any appointments. And some people say, oh, you're an overbearing parent. No, I'm a parent who wants to see my son live past 18 years old.
Yeah.
no, absolutely.
Well,
See that here as well, by the way, nicotine is covered, electronic cigarettes, including parts and liquid nicotine. So if it's containing nicotine, if it's containing tobacco, it certainly is inappropriate to sell to someone under 21.
well,
Exactly.
I did some research on vaping in the youth, and it seems like the youth prefer vaping than they do more than they do cigarettes. And I did see where they say that that liquid that is used is flavored. Is that true?
Yes, and that's
So,
one of the things I wanted to talk about is if people under 21 are not supposed to be able to buy it and use it, why are they making them bright pastel colors? And why are they putting them in different flavors? There's over 150, maybe even 200 flavors that they come in. So just like cereal, when you want a child to buy the cereal or bother their mother to buy the cereal, you put it in the bright color box and you fill it with sugar so that it tastes good. So they're filling it with these berries, berry flavors, or strawberries, fruit flavors, so that these kids are attracted to it. We asked my son, you know what a cigarette smells like, and you've seen them. If the vape wasn't bright colored and if it smelled and looked like a cigarette, would you want it? And he said no.
Really?
100%. He said he would have never tried it. That's what he said.
So he's saying that the colors attracted him to it
The color and the flavor.
and the flavor.
mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think
That's
it's
a
also
bit-
like with cigarettes, where at some point, like, you know, smoking is more on, as far as being like the cool thing, is on the downtrend, whereas vaping is like, you know, on the uptrend of being really cool. It's been okay. It's like, yeah, you know, so I think that plays into it too.
Yeah, I noticed a bit of a change when cigarette smoking was banned everywhere, right? I mean, there was a shift where first you had, non-smoking sections, right? And then it became the smoking section, and then you had to smoke outside. And now it's like, you really can't go many places where smoking cigarettes is allowed. Since that shift happened, I'm seeing more and more people not smoking cigarettes, but they'll just pull out that vape. It's almost like they're sneaking a little puff of the vape on the low.
Exactly. And it's very dangerous for these kids. There's kids winding up in the hospital with pneumonia type symptoms. They get a symptom called popcorn lung because it's actually like eating away at their lungs, and it's killed some people too.
Well, have you done research on what it does to the brain?
That's
How it affects the brain?
nicotine based, so it does affect the brain as if smoking. It gives you that euphoric kind of feeling, and that's what my son said. Was he liked the way it made him feel.
So it's like sort of like a drug as
And
well.
basically, it's a legalized drug for an adult. Anything that takes you out of your situation or enhances you is a drug. And nicotine is a drug, whether people want to admit it or not. And they say, oh, it's just vaping. But vaping is becoming more and more dangerous. And kids, from what I've researched, as young as 12 and 13 are able to get vaping. What does a 13-year-old need vaping? At 13 years old, I was still playing with my G.I. Joe figures.
Yeah, we watching the Macho Man.
Yeah. Now, with cigarettes, there's the big danger that not only does it do damage to yourself, but it also spreads it to other people with secondhand smoke. I mean, there are tens of thousands of people who die every year who are not smokers because of secondhand smoke. Does vaping have that same effect?
I will look into that, but for what I think in my, my basic opinion is it's worse than smoking. It's worse than secondhand smoke. They're basically blowing out a big cloud of nicotine-based liquid, and they turn it into a puff of a cloud that's 7 or 8 times stronger than what a cigarette was.
I want to thank everyone joining us. I see James, Rowini, Lixa in the chat. Lixa says it's nicotine. It reacts to your body just like a cigarette. Nicotine is as addictive as heroin.
Exactly. I am, as we spoke before, I'm a big, huge wrestling fan, and Jake the Snake Roberts is one of my favorite wrestlers. And one of his best friends is Diamond Dallas Page, and we all know Diamond Dallas Page fought for Jake the Snake's life, and Jake the Snake kind of helped make his career. And he had a conversation with Jake, and he told Diamond Dallas Page that everything that I've done in my life, I've had a great life. The only thing I really regret is I wish I never picked up a cigarette, because he's tried to quit so many times, and he's been on oxygen. He's had operations and 2 or 3 cigarettes a day, and he goes back to it because he's addicted to it. I reached out to Diamond Dallas Page, and I had him do a cameo because I feel so strongly against that. And to segue into another part of my life, I'm a big fan of Diamond Dallas Page because he started DDP Yoga.
Right.
If they ever did a story called Good Side of the Ring, Diamond Dallas Page would be tired of being in every episode, because the man has saved more people's lives and done more good after wrestling, including his DDP Yoga program, which I'm a member of.
Right. I was going to ask you about that, Chris. So do you think there's an opportunity here to get your son into DDP Yoga with you, maybe as an alternative to the vaping?
I've tried to work with him with that, and I've been doing DDP Yoga for over 2 years now. I've lost 80 pounds.
Wow.
I've gained an incredible amount of flexibility because of the program, and I've met new and interesting people who have become basically family to me. I have somebody working with me now as a nutrition coach, and she was the 2020 champion of Diamond Dallas Page. And to win a champion, you just have to be unstoppable, basically. You're not going to give up. You're going to lose the most weight possible. You're going to live the best life that you can live. And if you can prove to them through a series of challenges and things, they do all their work on Facebook and, online. And if you can do what they're looking for, then you can become an unstoppable champion. And they cater to, like, this coming week, at the end of the month, I'm going to be going down to his performance center, and there's going to be 100 of us, and we were invited to work out with Diamond Dallas Page and his group. And it's amazing. It's amazing, the amount of energy and positivity that is in that room. And if you've never seen his story, Relentless, that is the story that hooked me on his DDP Yoga program. He talks about his background and how he came to be into the business and how he blew out his back, and he found yoga as an alternative method to strengthen his back so that he can get back in the wrestling ring. But then he combined it with calisthenics and isometrics to come up with a revolutionized program called DDP Yoga. At first, it was yoga for regular men, but he didn't have a hook. And then he did some more research, and they rebranded it into DDP Yoga. And he went on Shark Tank, and he was turned down by Shark Tank.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. The next day, he woke up to 1 million hits.
Right. But you know what? Do say that there's something in your brain that's triggered when you exercise, right? And I'm sure there's been a lot of research on this, but it probably could be viewed as an alternative to the drugs and the vices, right? You might be able to get a similar type of high that can replace that if that's something that's been burdening your life, right? Maybe try an exercise program to take its place.
That I would agree with that 100%. It's been I have an addictive personality. So if I like something and my wife says like, this is one time that your personality has really done you well because you're being healthy. I just went to a urologist and he told me all my numbers are great. Everybody's going in the other direction and they come to him because of problems. He says, you're just coming for your regular checkup and you're going the other way. You're doing great. He says, you're the healthiest I've seen you in your adult life. And it's about eating right and the mindset of, I'm going to do the next right thing for my body.
Right.
Well, I have a question with vaping and you being in the position that you're in. Have you reached out to any other young people that might know other youth that are vaping? Has your son reached out to his friends to say anything or bring them to you to start maybe a club or just rally around the neighborhood against
Or a
vaping?
group or something?
I started a group on Facebook called People Against Vaping Youths. People Against Youth Vaping is what it was called. And I started just researching. I have 28 members now, but I hope more people will join as time goes on. And I'm like I said, I just want to make people aware of the dangers of it. I'm not against it if you're an adult and that's what you want to do. I've never, it's my right to smoke. It's my right to drink. It's my right to do this, that, and the other. That is your right. But when it comes to children, we have to keep them safe because their brain is not fully developed until they're about 22 to 23 years old.
Yeah.
So that's so I started a Facebook group on it. I had spoken to my son's best friend, who's the one who started him on it. And I explained to him, like, wasn't really cool. I thought we were supposed to be cool with each other because, I let you come over to my house and hang out in my house and I treat you like your family. And you're the one who started my kid doing this. And he said that he's trying to stop and that he's preaching to Braden to do it anymore because he didn't like the way it made him feel.
Remember
And,
those ad campaigns, tobacco is wacko if you're a teen? And it seemed like, as corny as that some of the stuff was, it seemed to get the message across that you don't really see, like we discussed, young people smoking cigarettes as much, but now they've turned to this. So I wonder what could be done as a society to make it not cool to vape.
That's a very good question. I mean, as a society, we just need to inform more and more people of what the dangers are about it and let them know that there's another way. There's a better way.
Yeah. We do want to ask about enforcement. As we mentioned, there are laws in place, but laws are not any good if they're not being enforced. And so ourselves what we need to be doing to better enforce these laws, especially as you alluded to, in light of the fact that dispensaries will now be opening throughout the state, right? We want to make sure that they're not selling inappropriately to kids.
And a lot of these marijuana and vape dispensaries have been opening up all over New York City. And believe it or not, there's only 2 legal dispensaries on the books in New York City.
Right.
Mm. So they're how are they opening up?
They open up these stores and then
Really?
basically they just open up illegally and it takes time for the police to shut them down.
Right. They'll try
because
to conceal what they're doing.
Yes, because now the political people and the police are the bad people. And, when I grew up, if a cop said boo, you ran, we used to have beat cops, but now everybody has a camera and cops are bad. And there's good and bad in everything. There are a lot of good cops out there trying to do the right thing, but they feel at this point in time with everybody with the camera in their face and, people's rights and all this other stuff, they feel their hands are tied as well. And they don't want to get involved because they're afraid for their lives. They're afraid for their pensions. They're afraid for their family.
But I mean, if a business was out there clearly breaking the law and operating illegally as a dispensary, you don't need a beat cop to come in and shut them down, right? I mean, you could make a complaint to higher authorities.
Well, that's what I did was I went and I made a complaint to the 100th precinct. I wrote a report. They took down all my information and what had happened. And they told me that that business has like 7 complaints filed on it. And they're just waiting for the right time to shut it down.
Okay.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, what does that even mean?
What
Like,
is the
wait,
right time? The right time was before they sold stuff to kids, right?
Exactly. But when it comes to the law, when the people who are supposed to be enforcing the law, their hands are tied with a lot of red tape. And these dispensaries or even other people breaking the law are finding the loopholes to.
Right. I was going to
the
mention that there are loopholes that they try to use with some more successful than others, but it reminded me of back in the days, there was a shop, well, I don't want to call it the shop, a lot of record stores around the city would sell mixtapes illegally, right? But what they would say is they were selling the CD cover and you got a free mixtape when you bought the CD cover for $15 or whatever. So they're trying to get around it by saying, we're not selling this illegally, we're just selling you a CD case. So you see something similar sometimes with some of these dispensaries where they say, we're not selling you the weed, we're selling you a wrapper, we're giving you weed, you know, things like that.
That's it. We're giving it to you for free.
Yeah.
And in the chat was brought up a good point that with these illegal dispensaries that are selling things, like, you know, they're not regulated, so you don't know what you're buying or what they're selling. And so the legal dispensaries are very strict, and the products are regulated. So I think that's another thing to be concerned with as well.
Exactly, because I mean, as a kid, we all did crazy and stupid things. But the stuff that they're using out on the streets today is wild and crazy. Everything's being cut with fentanyl, and we've all heard the horror stories of what that can do to somebody. And that's another reason why I'm afraid for my son's life. I don't know if they can cut a vape with fentanyl. I haven't done the research on that yet, but I will be doing that. I'm a father of 3 children, and now my life just got a lot busier because I'm up at 2:00 in the morning. I get home at 1:30 in the afternoon, and now I have to go pick up my son from school, pick up my daughter from school, wait for my daughter to get off the school bus. And then there's extracurricular activities, the things that I need to fit into my day. And now I'm fighting this fight. And so it's been, I don't sleep much.
Yeah.
It's busy.
What is your son saying now that you're aware of this? Is he saying he's trying to stop? He is stopping? Is he saying he's going to keep doing it?
I've been trying to help him, and he's trying to stop, but he relapses because it's an addiction. He came to me and his mother, and he said, after the original fallout of everything that happened, and he came to us and he said, I feel I'm addicted and I need help. And we're doing our best to help him. We're researching ways to help him, programs, doctors. We took him for a full physical, and his pediatrician told him, like, you're kind of doing the wrong thing here, buddy. You not only is it bad for you as a teenager, it's bad for you because you're a teenager on medication.
Yeah, it's because even though it's very commonly accepted, nicotine is still a drug, and there could be interactions with medication that someone might be on.
Exactly. And that's what we're concerned about. Right now, I feel like I'm in a fight for my kid's life. And that really hasn't stopped since he was a baby, because his mother turned out to fall into drugs and alcohol, and that's why she's no longer with us. So it's, he's 17, and I've been fighting for him since the day he was born. And that's what a parent does. And like I said, I'll do whatever I have to. I'll knock on as many doors as I can. I'll do as many podcasts as possible. I'll change my whole world just so I can show him that this means something to me, and that I want it better for him and the people around him and the people his age, his generation. His generation deserves better, because they've basically gotten the raw end of the stick through COVID. COVID must have been horrible. Could you imagine being a teenager through COVID? I mean, being a teenager is awkward enough, and now you're locked in your house and you can't even see your friends and be weird with them and talk to them.
Yeah.
And they were basically locked in their house for 2 years, They couldn't go outside. They couldn't play. They couldn't talk to anybody, stay 6 feet away from everybody, you know. It was a scary situation. And now we have a generation of socially inept children who don't know how to behave social wise. And they don't have the coping mechanisms that we were born and raised with.
This might be a job for Father Krayven.
He's on the job, Mike.
That's right.
That could be a storyline there where Father Krayven goes in and suplexes all the store shop owners that are selling these things to kids.
I think we can make a commercial out of that. That would be cool.
Yeah.
So we wanted to put out a poll question on this topic. And as we said, there are laws, but laws only go so far if they're not being enforced. And so I think that's a good starting point. If we can start enforcing the laws that we do have on the books, then we could also look at adding new laws. But, you know, if it is illegal for stores to sell these products to people under 21, that should certainly be enforced. We shouldn't allow stores to be getting away with that. So I guess the poll question of the week that we wanted to ask is, do you believe that we need more enforcement around the regulation of selling vape and related products to children under 21?
I really think that's a great question. And my personal answer is yes. I think politicians need to get involved, and they need to stand on this platform and fight for the kids, because the kids are the future of this planet. My parents taught me that the planet's on loan to the adults until the children are old enough to take it over.
Yeah.
And that just goes generation down and down. So we got to do our best to make it a better place for them, because I know my parents tried to make it a better place for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that people could do if they're listening or watching is, if you're aware of a business doing this, know that it's illegal and know that you can make a complaint. You should call 311. You should go online and make the complaint, because they'll get away with it if they can. You know, unfortunately, you know, it's happening way too often. And so it is up to us to really ensure that these laws are enforced.
And I just want to say that, you know, people might be coming on here going, oh, look, another guy on the vaping bandwagon. I'm not on the vaping bandwagon. I'm on the vaping children bandwagon.
That's a very, very big distinction there. It's you know, because people will, like you said, there are people like, oh, my freedom and this and that, but like you're talking about for children who it's already illegal for them to purchase. And
Exactly.
you know, like you said, adults, if that's what you want to do it yourself, then you know you're fine with that. But for children, there's laws in place that need to be enforced. And you did get some kudos from the chat. Licks in the chat said, "Good job, Dad. We have to be careful and protect our kids." So that's good.
Thank you very much. And that's all I want to do, is I want to inform people that this is going on, and it's happening now, and it's happening in your community, my community, and it's happening to our children. And if we do nothing else, is make it a better place for our children.
Now, question, and I don't know, you know, for alcohol, there's a licensing situation to be able to sell alcohol, right? I don't know if is there one for cigarettes and for vaping?
I know you have to have a license to sell cigarettes, I believe, but as far as vaping goes, that's a good question that I could research also. I wouldn't.
Because that could be a step to making sure that, you know, people selling it are, you know, following some sort of rule.
So from what I'm seeing, you have to have an electronic cigarette retail dealer license to sell electronic cigarettes directly to consumers. The New York City Department of Consumer and Worker Protection issues this license.
So you're supposed to be licensed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's just, it sounds like all the steps are there, have been taken to make sure that this is done and regulated well, so that it's in the hands of adults, that the failure is at whoever the person is behind the counter, or the stores that are selling it, as far as getting it to children.
Absolutely. And Chris made a good point also about the way that it's marketed, right? The colors, the flavors. I mean, that might be something worth looking into. Of course, it gets tricky. You can't really say you can't sell products that are colorful. I mean, you know, adults might like it too, but it does seem like it is geared towards children.
Well, I mean, that's also, you look at, what is it? I'm going blank on it. When people go to Middle Eastern bars and they
hookah.
smoke the hookah's flavored. It's all different types of stuff. So I think it's a similar thing here, but you can't really do hookah at your corner store. So
If you look at every cigarette that's ever made, every cigarette looks very similar. They're not pretty. They're not there to attract kids. You know, there's warning labels on them. The Surgeon General has warning. And why do these vapes need to be made pastel colors if they're not gearing it towards kids? Why are you putting berry flavors in them? Why are you making it taste like Captain Crunch and Cocoa Pebbles if it's not flavor, if it's not a business that's geared towards children? If you remove those things, maybe that's something that can change.
now we get in the chat, Lixa is saying that flavored vapes are illegal even for adults. Is that true?
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that either, and I've done some research. And
Is that a New York thing? Is that I mean,
We
Does
can look
she
it
have-
up to see if we can find anything on this. What I saw was just about selling these products to people under 21. I'm not seeing something saying that all flavored vapes are illegal.
yeah, I haven't heard that before.
I haven't heard that either.
But I'm looking right now. Let's see. Flavored vapes are illegal in New York City. New York City Council's Law 228 of 2019 prohibits the sale of flavored electronic cigarettes and flavored e-liquids of any size or shape.
And that's a New York City law.
And additionally, federal law prohibits the sale of devices containing e-liquid in flavors other than tobacco, mint, or menthol. So it looks like it might be illegal. Like, if that's the case, I mean, that's another point to report places
Yeah.
selling them.
And it looks like from what I found here in April 2021, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced plans to ban menthol cigarettes and all characterizing flavors and cigars. So it does look like there has been in the past few years efforts to ban various types of tobacco products that are flavored, I guess because of the fact that it attracts children.
Yeah, so I'm going to share this. This is a PDF report from the nyc.gov. I'm gonna put that in the chat. And I'll put it in the description of the video as well. That seems to detail that this law took effect.
Well, I appreciate you guys helping me with some research and, you know, helping me in this fight, because like I said, we're fighting for our children, and knowledge is power. I don't have all the knowledge. There's so much to learn about this. And in between working my full-time job and raising my 3 kids, I'm trying to squeak in at least 5 to 10 minutes, half hour a day, if I can, learning what I can learn about this and how I can go about helping the laws be stricter, and change towards children.
Yes, it does seem like there has been a lot of recent development on this. It looks like in December of last year, California passed a ban on flavored tobacco products as well. It just seems like that's the direction that we're moving in, but the laws keep changing on this. So
It sounds like
developments.
people are having the same concern that Chris has as far as how it's attractive to children,
Right,
having the different flavors.
right. But see, I can see now, because this is Nuance, I can see some pushback on this
Right.
idea that adults can't enjoy that type of product, right? I mean, what if an adult wants a flavored tobacco product? I'm really not familiar with this entire realm. I've never smoked in my life, but
Me either.
as far as a human rights perspective goes, right? Just people's rights to enjoy these products. I mean, I don't know. Is it going too far to say that you can't have any type of flavored tobacco, even if you're an adult?
Right. And according to what I looked at, it seemed like they did allow some flavors, but only if they're tobacco flavor or mint flavor. So, and where's the limit on that? Who decides that only mint flavor is okay and not berry flavor is okay? Like why that distinction?
Well, because it seems like they're saying those other types of flavors are more geared towards children, right?
Sure, but like you pointed out, what if you're an adult and you
Yeah.
you want, a berry
And you're always
flavor?
gonna have that one
For
adult.
selling it, by the way, or I mean, would you be able to hypothetically flavor your own, put some cherry juice in there or something, or is that going to make it illegal?
I don't know how that works.
I don't know how that works. I don't know if you would be able to.
Aren't they
Flavor.
sealed containers? Like I don't.
From what I understand, it's a car. I've never even seen one.
I've
Unless
seen two types.
unless somebody was smoking them, I've never personally had one. And with my son's situation, he's never showed me one.
Yeah.
So I've never seen one up close. I've never experienced one. I've seen two types. One is like a big cartridge and one looks like a little whistle.
I've seen another type where someone buys it seems like the liquid in a separate container and then they just kind of fill it into the thing. Actually a friend of mine out here, she smokes that and she's always saying, oh, it's just water vapor, it's just water vapor type of thing. And she's constantly fill it out. And there's a lot more smoke when she blows out than other vape type of things. So I don't know what the difference is between the types, but there seems to be a variety.
There's a lot of unfounded and unknown variables in this whole world that we don't know with vaping at this time.
Yeah, but
It's a relatively new phenomenon, right? As far as being a very prominent, popular thing.
Exactly.
yeah. So I'm gonna again. I'll pass this PDF off to Mike and he can get that over to you, Chris, regarding these flavors. So might be helpful for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Right. And see, and that adds a whole nother layer to this, because if this store, for example, was selling these products to kids, it may be the case that they're not even allowed to sell the products at all, right? If they're the wrong flavor or wrong color, whatever these laws are now. That might be even an easier way to go after them in a sense, right? If it's hard to catch them selling it to kids, well, why is it on their shelf at all?
Right. Absolutely.
Agreed.
We'll see what that poll question, what the results turn out to be.
Yeah, we'll see that. And speaking on the poll question, I did want to pull up our poll question from last week, where we asked about the concerns about artificial intelligence and AI. As we know, there is a writer's strike going on, and there were a number of concerns articulated, but one of them was this idea that AI could take their jobs or jeopardize their livelihoods. And so we asked, the poll question was, given the concerns of the writers, do you believe that artificial intelligence should be used in the writing process? And on my poll here on Reddit, I've got 73% no, 27% yes.
Wow.
That's a surprise, because I actually was of the opinion that people were going to say it's fine, because the trend I've been seeing lately has been that AI is just here to stay. It's just a new technology. We shouldn't be technophobes. I hear that a lot. And why are we trying to burn witches? That's kind of the feedback I've gotten, right? When I've asked some of these questions before, it's like you remind us of people trying to burn witches at the stake, get with the times. It's just part of the world. So it's a bit of a surprise that you've got this response, basically 3/4 of the people saying no, AI should not be allowed to be used in the creative writing process.
Yeah, in the Instagram responses, it was a 2-to-1 no on that it shouldn't be used, and the concerns again that would either take jobs or just kill creative professionals.
Yeah, a couple comments here I wanted to read. One says, no, artificial intelligence could be used to fake responses and make false opinions about a subject, so it's not a good idea. That's from Pet Channel YT. And then I've got one from Strike Y, saying it could be useful for brainstorming and proofreading, but it shouldn't be used to actually write. So my question is always, where do you draw the line and how do you draw the line? How do you enforce this? How are people going to know? I mean, are we saying that AI just can't be used? Are we saying that it can't produce the final version, but it can give us ideas? It seems like a slippery slope in terms of trying to enforce that. I guess it could just be a baseline, you know, in a contract, right? We're not going to use AI to write our scripts, but it does also seem like technology that's just kind of integrated into our world now. And I don't know how you stop it.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't see how you can enforce that, or how you can tell a studio, oh, you can't use AI to write a show or a script that you're producing and you're putting on air. Like, we're not allowed to have any sort of AI produced content. It's kind of a difficult thing to enforce or say. But I do understand the concerns that with it being so easy for AI to produce something, that it could reduce the need for writers or, you know,
Right.
human.
But also, you know what? An argument was made, and I don't know how valid it is yet, but I've heard the argument even when we had Jamie on our show, we were talking about adjusting your creativity in today's world. She said that, listen, it just forces people to adapt. So they're going to have to be more creative. They're going to have to be creative within the realm of AI. So maybe it's a different type of creativity, but
Right.
it's going to make you just get with the times. And maybe now it's going to be who can use AI the best in their writing. I don't know.
Yeah. But one thing is clear, that it is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So, you know, that's going to have to be what people need to do is figure out how to use it, best way to use it.
Mhm.
So
Something I always grew up with, and I was taught at a young age: science fiction today, it's fact tomorrow.
Yeah.
So things that we were watching movies on 20 and 30 years ago is in reality today.
yeah,
And we're
absolutely.
it's a different world, and we're learning to live with it. But when is enough enough, and when does artificial intelligence, you know, become self-aware at some point?
Right. And is there a danger that it's going to take over all of our jobs?
Yes.
Exactly. I
Here's
mean,
a,
people whined and complained that they wanted the minimum wage raised, and the minimum wage was raised, and then they put computers in a lot of their places.
here's
So
a, oh, I'm sorry. Here's
Yes, you-
a YouTube, I think it's on YouTube. Humans need not apply.
Mm,
A friend of mine shared that with me, and he said that it was one of his favorite videos or films that he saw. Humans need not apply. And when you talk about AI, it makes you think of that.
yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's a phrase used often, and I've said it multiple times on here, is that, you know, right now the technology is the worst it's ever going to be, so it's going to get better and better. And, you know, what AI may write right now may not be comparable to what's in the writer's room, but as time goes on, that quality is going to improve. And, you know, and you can tell, you're telling a business, you know, you've got to pay this writer instead of using this AI that can produce somewhat similar content for no cost. Like, it's gonna be a hard sell.
yeah,
Right. Although, as you mentioned, right now, it isn't the same content, right? It is
No.
going to get better, I'm sure. But I've played around with it. You could ask it to write scripts or what have you. Sure, it'll do it, but it's not going to be quite as good as a good writer, you know.
Right.
I do think, though, that it's moving in that direction, where it is getting better and better. And maybe it's best to handle this now before it gets out of control.
Yeah, I mean, it can do some contract writing as well.
Yeah. It can
you
write
know,
wrestling storylines, Chris.
there
you
you go.
I was gonna say, wrestling storylines. Like, hey, these are the characters. Yeah, I need a storyline for this week. What are we doing?
I actually tried that, believe it or not, when I was playing around with ChatGPT. I was like, here's the result of a recent wrestling show. Where might these characters go from here? And it came up with a whole idea of the next month. Who's going to feud with who?
Wow.
Who's going to do? Yeah, it
Yeah.
did, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and they're only getting better. It's only getting better and better. So
So I don't know. It's a tough one, right? I mean, but how do you tell it no? How do you really enforce? Like, it goes back to enforcement, right? Like, what do you do to ensure that writers are able to write? Like I was joking last week, they're gonna say, you know, one puff of AI won't hurt anyone, right? Like, how do you? They're gonna be sneaking the hits of AI behind people's back.
Yeah, I mean, the writers could go home and use AI to bring up their ideas, then walk into work with them and like, hey, this is what I came up with, and then now let's discuss. Like, it's going nowhere. I mean, we may have let open Pandora's box here. Like, it's this could be a downfall of our society moment. We don't know yet, because it's not going anywhere. There's no way to stop it at this point.
So with that being said, do you think it's worth it to try to put provisions in contracts like this to say AI cannot replace writers and try to put these checks in place? Or is that futile? Is it just here to stay and we shouldn't even try to fight it?
I think for unions negotiating contracts, it's a good time to get that point in there now, while the argument is that the content that AI produces is not as good. So there's more of an incentive or more of a need for the studios to have human writers so that they have quality shows. If you try to do that later on, when the quality is superior to what it is now, then the studio has less reason to negotiate to put that in there. Right now, they need the writers. They need people that are going to write stuff. So I think this union negotiation should say, look, if you want to do contracts with our members, then these are the things that have to be in place. We have to make sure that this amount of writers are in compensations like this. AI is not displacing any of them. So
and that's a strong
position right now.
That's an important distinction to make also. It's not necessarily the law, right? You're not banning people from using AI as a matter of law, but you're saying that it might be a point of negotiation in a contract. If you're saying you want to hire these writers, you want to work with us, well, we're demanding that they write, and AI is not going to take over their jobs.
Right. So, and I would try to get that in at a very as long-term point as you can, because in 2 to 3 years, the AI landscape is going to be very, very different. Quality is going to be much higher, and there's going to be less of a negotiating point there, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's the world that we live in now. We have to stay vigilant on all of these things, right? Whether it's AI, whether it's vaping, we see new trends developing, and they can be dangerous in the wrong hands or if not used right. So it is up to us to put the necessary checks in place.
Absolutely. And follow the ones that are in place.
Right. I've said that before also, right? I have worked in the legislature, and we are so proud of ourselves when we get a law passed, but at the end of the day, it's just a piece of paper if it's not enforced. And sometimes that's even a matter of education. You can pass a law. What if the whole state doesn't know it's a law? Well, then it's like a tree falling in a forest and no one hearing it, right? Did it really fall? So it's that same type of scenario where it does take education and people speaking out and informing the public that these things are here.
Absolutely. And that's a similar case out here in Japan, where Japan has actually pretty good labor laws, but a lot of the public is not aware of these labor laws, and so they get violated quite often, frequently, as a matter of course, as a matter of work culture, and no one knows that they have recourse. No one knows that there's been anything violated. And that was when I was with when I was working with the labor union. That was one of the things we had to try to do, is educate the members on, look, no, you have rights here, and these things need to be enforced and need to be followed, and there's legal recourse for that.
Yes. And so in that spirit, we commend you, Chris, for doing what you can to educate people on this vaping issue as it relates to children. We need more of that, right? More education, more outreach to the public on this, so people understand the serious issue that it is.
Knowledge is power, and information is the key.
Yeah. And, we, of course, ourselves were educated a bit tonight on some of these laws. As we mentioned, they're developing, they're changing rapidly. Thank you, Lixa, in the chat for educating us, the research that we've been able to do here. So, yeah, it's a matter of keeping ourselves educated and letting people know not just the issue, but what the laws are, how they can be enforced, how we can be doing better when it comes to enforcement, and, keeping that watchful eye on our kids, especially. It's our kids that we're talking about here. So it's extra important.
Absolutely.
With that said, Chris, and maybe Chris should do this as Father Krayven, I don't know. But we'd like to give our guests the last word here. We call it the bottom line, and it's whatever you think you want to leave the people with. It could be what we talked about or beyond, whatever's on your mind, whatever you want the last word to be. Chris McDonough, Father Krayven, what is the bottom line?
Well, heathens and sinners, my name is Father Krayven, and I'm here to talk to you about the topic on vaping youths. And we need to open the eyes of everybody in the world on this topic because it's sliding in right under our noses. So please come join my page on Facebook, People Against Youths Vaping. Reach out to me at Father Krayven, at Chris Krayven McDonough. And let's have a conversation about it. If I'm misinformed about something or I misspoke on something, please, I'm only human. I make mistakes. Contact me, correct me. And then together, as we learn and we grow as one, we can all awaken to a new reality.
Yes, yes, I like it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Father Krayven. Jay, where can people find us?
They can find us on YouTube at Nuance Show, where they'll get replays of all of the shows on there. Also, stop by over on Instagram, give a follow, give a comment. I give a comment on both of them. Also, check us out. The podcast version is everywhere podcasts are. So Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, all of those places, and in the new YouTube podcast section. So wherever you get your podcasts, we're out there. We're in these podcast streets.
That's right. Right. So thank you all for checking us as always. Thank you, Sheba. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jay. Thank you to Eve and Lehman College, CUNY. This has been great. And as always, we've got work to do. We'll catch you next time. Good night.